Arthur Morris was always among the first to arrive at the corporation's towering glass building. Long before the managers in sharp suits and secretaries with their clipped heels filled the hallways, Arthur was already there. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories with unexpected twists that will warm your heart. The hum of the fluorescent lights accompanied his steady footsteps, and the soft sweep of his broom echoed across the empty corridors. To most employees, Arthur was invisible. He was simply the cleaner, a part of the building like the elevators or the furniture. They would pass him by without a nod, without a smile, often too absorbed in their phones or the weight of their own careers to notice the quiet man with graying hair and a bent back. But Arthur's story was far more than what met the eye. At home, in a modest apartment on the edge of town, lived his daughter Lillian. She was 12 years old, bright-eyed and curious, with dreams larger than the world her father struggled to provide for. For Lillian, her father was not just a cleaner, he was a hero. Every day when she watched him lace up his old shoes and put on his worn uniform, she saw courage. He bore the burden of their survival alone, working shifts no one else wanted, just so she could eat, study, and dream of a future different from his. Arthur himself had once dreamed too. As a young man, he had loved drawing and had hoped to become an architect, designing the very kind of offices he now cleaned. But life, with its cruel unpredictability, had stripped away that dream. His parents fell ill, money ran out, and Arthur was forced into any work he could find. The years slipped away, and soon he was too deep into survival to chase ambition. Still, he never complained. One evening, as Arthur was mopping the lobby floor, a group of executives passed by. They were laughing loudly, talking about promotions and vacations. One of them dropped a folder, spilling papers everywhere. Without hesitation, Arthur bent down and gathered the sheets, neatly stacking them back together. The executive barely looked at him, muttering a quick thanks before hurrying off. Arthur only smiled faintly and continued with his mop. But what he didn't know was that someone had noticed. Mr. Grant, the CEO of the corporation, had been walking past silently. Unlike most, he observed the patience and quiet dignity with which Arthur carried himself. For weeks afterward, Mr. Grant watched him from a distance. The way Arthur treated everyone with kindness, even when they overlooked him, and the way he performed his duties with pride, never cutting corners. One morning, Mr. Grant approached Arthur. "Good morning, Arthur," he said. Arthur blinked, surprised the CEO even knew his name. "Good morning, sir." "I've seen the way you work. You remind me of my own father," he continued. "He was a janitor too, and he taught me more about perseverance than anyone else ever did." Arthur didn't know what to say. Mr. Grant smiled. "Tell me, do you still dream of something more?" For the first time in years, Arthur allowed himself to whisper, "I wanted to design buildings once." That was the beginning of a change. Mr. Grant arranged for Arthur to attend evening classes in drafting and architecture, fully sponsored by the company. It wasn't easy. Arthur was older, his hands were rough from years of cleaning, and exhaustion often weighed him down. But Lillian's shining eyes gave him strength. She would sit beside him at the kitchen table, doing her homework while he practiced sketches of buildings and blueprints. Years passed. Arthur didn't become the world's most famous architect, nor did he build skyscrapers across the globe, but he did something just as meaningful. He earned his certification, moved into the design department of the very company whose hallways he once cleaned, and began contributing to projects. His name appeared modestly on blueprints and office plans. And though most people in the company still didn't know the story behind that name, Arthur and Lillian did. For Lillian, her father was not just the man who swept away dust from the floors. He was the man who taught her that no matter how invisible the world makes you feel, dignity, perseverance, and quiet strength can one day turn shadows into light. Moral of the story? Never underestimate the quiet figures in the background. Sometimes the strongest heroes are those who sweep the hallways while carrying the weight of their families and their dreams on their shoulders.